Right, wonderful. It is Wednesday, May 17th, 2023 at 3:30 p.m. and this is the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting. And that is our call to order. We will have a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys, Alderman Browning,
Present.
Alderman Aldridge,
Present.
Chair Schweitzer,
Present.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys. We have 3 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We will move to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 10th, 2023?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys, Browning,
Yes.
Alderman Aldridge,
Yes. Pass. Yes.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Keys. 3 aye votes.
Thank you. With your vote, we sustain the motion in approving the minutes of Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. We will move to committee discussions and we will circle back for board bills. Last week during our meeting, we had committee members discuss their priorities for this committee and what we'd like to see our work center around moving forward. We invited members of the public to come and give their priorities, and today we are joined by some leaders from TrailNet who I will invite to come speak now if you are ready, giving their feedback. I will need to read public comment. It says to be read, and we're hearing public comment. The initial presentation of any witness shall be no longer than 5 minutes, except with the permission of the committee chair, but any witness may respond to questions by members of the committee for an additional period of time to be determined by the committee chair. Any witness may submit written testimony to the committee at any time prior to the conclusion of the hearing on this bill. This is more of a committee discussion. And we did have the information out for signing up half hour prior to the meeting. So to begin, I will need to swear you in. Do you swear that any testimony you provide is the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Wonderful. Can you please introduce yourselves and give us where you're from, and then we'll hear your testimony.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Charles Bryson. I am the Policy Catalyst for TrailNet, which is a nonprofit organization that advocates for safe streets for all in the region. So that would be St. Louis and St. Louis County as well.
Wonderful.
And I'm Adam Treaster. I also work at TrailNet as a planning coordinator.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We did receive a letter from you all earlier this week about the priorities that you have, and that has been placed in the committee's folder under the discussions folder. So we do have that, but please carry on and let us know what your priorities are.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Yep. Hello, Committee Chair Schweitzer and members of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee. Thank you for allowing TrailNet, the regional advocate for safe streets, to present today. One way TrailNet advocates for safer streets is through our annual crash report. The 2022 crash report names, according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol Statewide Traffic Accident Record System, or STARS, the streets in the region with the most crashes and, unfortunately, fatalities. In the city, the following streets have had the most crashes and fatalities. For walking, the high crash corridors are Grand, Chippewa, Kings Highway, Gravois, Broadway, Lindell, Olive, and Hampton. For biking, the high crash corridors are Grand, Chippewa, Taylor, Tower Grove Ave, and for driving, the highest fatality corridors are Kings Highway and Del Mar. Due to our knowledge of the circumstances of these crashes and through the completion of several years of crash reports, TrailNet has compiled the following recommendations to increase pedestrian, bicyclist, and vehicular safety and reduce crashes and fatalities. A comprehensive citywide infrastructure study must be done. Streets and sidewalks do not end at ward boundaries. Adopt a vision for no fatalities using a safe systems approach to infrastructure and incorporate it into philosophy and practice. Address ward capital as it is an inefficient method of providing funding for infrastructure. It does not provide enough money or the ability to maintain our streets and sidewalks adequately. reduce speed limits on neighborhood streets to 20 miles an hour citywide instead of 25 or greater. In addition to speed humps, road diets, shamble pots, street trees, bump outs, and center medians, and other traffic calming measures can be implemented, and some can be done at a lower cost than a speed bump. Separate pedestrians and bicyclists from cars with physically protected bike lanes, as it is essential to reduce fatalities. When possible, mid-block crossings should be built to allow people to cross the street safely and at the most convenient locations. Madam Chairman and committee members, TrialNet again would like to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the 2022 crash report and our recommendations to improve the quality of life for all persons through safe infrastructure. I'm here to take any questions.
Thank you so much. This is on the agenda under public comment around our committee discussion. So we moved that to the beginning of the agenda because we did have folks here to testify early, just to let folks know. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? I'll start with Vice Chair Browning.
No questions. Just want to say big fan of your work. Really appreciate it. It's much needed, and we're definitely going to be approaching those subjects during this session and beyond.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I also just want to echo same sentiments from Alderman Brownie. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I've been able to have these conversations a lot with Mr. Charles, and glad to know that he has a rock star with him, but just looking forward to these continuous conversations, and so appreciative of all the work that you guys do to make it more accessible in the city of St. Louis. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and I think finally we did suggest that we do a larger viewing, if you will, of the crash report and go into a little more depth, as I think it really covers some of the issues in both city and county, but certainly in St. Louis City, why those crash corridors are still in existence, and ways per corridor that we could take some immediate action as a city to reduce the vehicular crashes and or fatalities in those corridors. So we look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how much of the TrailNet crash report is generated from where the data comes from, and how you put those together?
Yeah, so that's the Missouri STARS system, the State Traffic Accident Record System. So that is a compilation of all, within the city, it just comes from SLMPD, and then it gets reported to the State Highway Patrol, and then they publish that on their website. We download the data from them and do some additional analysis, like the data does not include the speed limit of the street or the categorization, whether it's an arterial or collector or local road. So we do all of that collection ourselves and go into that detail.
And we also go occasionally and look at the crash situation and determine if there were other issues outstanding that was not covered under the STARS report.
Okay. And how much what is the TrailNet's general way of gathering public input from folks into what sort of recommendations were made here? Was it mostly just from the general data of the crashes, or?
It's two systems. One is it's the data from the crash report, and number two, so Alderman Aldridge knows I've gone to a lot of ward and neighborhood and block unit meetings over my career with TrailNet, and before that in city government. So a lot of what I've heard is a result of what you see in front of you.
And how much has TrailNet been involved in the Safe Streets for All planning process that the city is undertaking through American Rescue Plan Act funds?
Not as much as we'd like, and I think we would certainly love to be a part of that committee or commission, whatever is formed. We also would like to help with community engagement and help create something that I think is important for everyone, and that is every street needs to be safe. How do we make it happen? One of the anomalies in the work that we've done is how we've noticed what's going on with neighborhood streets, and that they have more crashes than arterial streets, if that's correct. And so that's something a lot of people won't know and won't understand, because they were looking at Grand Avenue and they're looking at Kings Highway, but not looking at the neighborhood streets that are now really having some tremendous problems.
Great. And you have a vision for no fatalities using a safe systems approach. Is that the same as Vision Zero? It's just a different.
Yeah, there's a
something-
word left out, sorry.
Okay, 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 good. I was gonna say, I'm like, what is this? Are we changing things? Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here to give public testimony today. I know that the work of TrailNet and the things that you provide represent not just you and you two standing here, but so many people who care deeply about the safety of our streets and prioritizing the users who are the most vulnerable. So I really appreciate you sharing information with us today. Thank you for coming and for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will make sure that these things are part of the resolution that we will be working through to guide the work of our committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have anyone else signed up for public testimony, correct? Wonderful. Okay, thank you all for being here. We will move now back to item number 4 on the agenda, board bills for review. Item number 1, we have board bill number 9, introduced by Alderwoman Shameem Clark-Hubbard. Alderwoman Hubbard, you are recognized. Clark-Hubbard, sorry. Do you want the introduction to be read while you're getting ready? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. This is Board Bill Number 9, ordinance establishing a two-way stop site at the intersection of Enright Avenue and Hamilton Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on Hamilton Avenue at the intersection of Enright Avenue and Hamilton Avenue, and containing an emergency clause. This came directly from requests from citizens, constituents right there closest to that problem of a lot of speeding going down that artery. You know, speaking to the comprehensive planning that they'll be doing with the safe streets and everything, but until we get there, these are immediate responses we can have and that can support our constituents. If you have any questions, sure, I'll be here to answer them. Nobody was able to make it today. I always do like to invite my constituents and ask them if they want to come and speak to the need, as well as send written responses, but they know that I got their back and I can handle it in their absence. So I'm here to advocate for them and get this passed. I'm asking for a do pass recommendation for Board Bill Number 9.
Thank you very much. I'll go through my committee to see if we have questions. Vice Chair Browning?
Yes, so looking at this intersection, it looks like there's currently a stop sign where Enright comes into Hamilton, is that correct? But we're just making it stop signs on every end of the intersection?
Well, yeah, exactly. We're taking it from a one-way stop to a three-way stop. So the one stop now goes east and west, and they're asking for an additional stop to be added going north and south, because there is, when people are parked on Hamilton, one thing they did note for sure is that without the traffic stopping, also coupled with the speeding, it's hard for them to get in and out of their street.
Thank you.
Reverend Aldridge, any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. I also do not have any questions, so unless, do you have anything to say in closing? Wonderful. At this point, I'll entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation for Board Bill Number 9.
So moved.
Second?
Do I hear a call for previous roll?
Call for previous roll. Like to make a motion, we do previous roll.
Any objection to previous roll? Okay, with that, your motion passes for a due pass recommendation for Board Bill Number 9. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 2, Board Bill Number 21, introduced by Alderman Cohn. Wonderful. Madam Clerk, will you read the summary of Board Bill Number 21, please?
Board Bill Number 21, introduced by Alderman Cohn, an ordinance pertaining to commercial vehicles as such term is defined herein, and prohibiting such traffic along Merrimack Street between South Broadway and Grand Boulevard, and exempting from the said prohibition non-commercial pickup trucks, emergency vehicles, including tow trucks when providing emergency services to non-commercial vehicles, and vehicles making deliveries to nearby addresses, and containing an emergency clause.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just to expound further on Board Bill number 21, this has been much discussion by my constituents with respect to the commercial vehicle traffic that happens along Merrimack Street, which is a city street, versus other similarly sized streets or larger that carry commercial vehicle traffic throughout the city, particularly on the east side of the city as it's adjacent to Highway 55. Merrimack, this particular stretch from Broadway to South Grand is in a historic district. It's a lot of older buildings. It's a very narrow street and also has a public school on it. The St. Anthony's Padua Parish is there. There's a charter school on it. And it constantly has commercial traffic, huge semi-tractor trailers that are going up and down the street all hours of the day and night. Causing very much concern for the safety and welfare of the residents that are on that stretch. For those of you that aren't familiar, there is a section of Chippewa, which is a MoDOT road just to the north of Merrimack by a couple blocks. So the intent here is to hopefully start diverting some of that traffic towards Chippewa, which is also maintained by the state as well. And I've been alderperson for little over 14 years now, and Chippewa, I believe, has been paved twice, and Merrimack has not been paved at all. And so the wear and tear that these vehicles create on our city streets is also to the detriment of our city budget as well, not only the health and welfare of the residents. So this is an attempt to try and divert some of that large vehicular commercial traffic to more appropriate streets.
Thank you very much. I'll go through the committee for questions. Vice Chair Browning.
No questions.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So would this say like no heavy trucks, like 20, is there a time frame that they can travel or just like none at all that they can?
The prohibition unless they're doing deliveries within that area.
Gotcha. Outside of that, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. This is an area that I'm on frequently. I have a bus that I take that goes down Merrimack regularly. So I am aware of how that street can be as a passenger on a bus when you're behind these commercial trucks and keep stopping. And, you know, is that something that came, is this something that came from residents and businesses along that street as well, that they were having issues?
Absolutely. The residents and businesses that live along that particular stretch are very frustrated with the accidents that happen, the lack of visibility when people are making left and right hand turns into oncoming traffic along that stretch. It's very problematic for particularly the semi-tractor trucks that are using that particular route.
And the enforcement with this is mostly just signage?
It's signage, and of course the police department would have to also enforce it through their commercial vehicle enforcement program.
Right. And in terms of how you started this process, is this something that you've done on other streets in your ward?
It's not for some time. There's neighbors on the west side of Grand would also like to see something similar for that stretch of Merrimack as well. However, we have a light industrial corridor along Gustine and Merrimack, just south of Merrimack. So there is a lot of purposeful deliveries that are happening in that area. So it's a little bit more difficult for regulation and enforcement of that type of traffic in that area. And you're, Alderwoman, probably also familiar with, Gustine and Delore, with the kind of light industrial businesses that are down there as well. They also regularly get, daily deliveries of materials using semi-tractor trailer trucks. So it's a little bit more prohibitive in terms of enforcement on the west side of Grand than it is on the east side of Grand. And I guess the idea here as well is that if you're able to at least push them north to Chippewa, then they won't be going on the west side of Grand quite as frequently.
Unless that's where they're heading.
Unless they're heading to Gustine, and then they can turn, onto Gustine from Chippewa.
Right, that makes sense. And I would imagine that this would be something that would be very desired by the businesses in terms of pedestrians. Well, I mean, that area over the last several years has had so many more small businesses and things happening. So
Yeah, it has, and it's, I mean, the Dutchtown Main Street folks have been, urging me to do something. This is actually a newer stretch for me. I previously only had Merrimack on the east side of Grand up until about Compton.
Okay.
And so I've picked up the additional, I guess, probably 3/4 of a mile from Compton over to Broadway with the new Ward 3. So trying to address some of the broader, constituent issues that I've been hearing actually for many years. But at one point in time, that stretch of that stretch of Merrimack was represented by 3 different alder people. So kind of difficult to coordinate efforts along that stretch. So since it's all in the new third, figured I'd take the opportunity to address the concerns of the constituents that are over there.
Sure. Any further questions from members of the committee? Okay. Anything further you'd like to add, Alderman?
No, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. At this point, I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill number 21.
So move.
Seconded?
Previous row.
Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, Board Bill number 21 is passed out of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee with a due pass recommendation. With that, you're
Favorable
welcome.
consideration.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to Board Bill number 24, also Alderman Cohn. Would you like the clerk to read that?
Yes, please.
Wonderful.
Board Bill number 24, introduced by Alderman Shane Cohn, pursuant to ordinance number 70333 as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on the 3500 block of Bingham Avenue, 3900 block of Giles Avenue, 4700 block of Tennessee Avenue, 3200 block of Liberty Street, 44 block South Spring Avenue, 4600 block of South Spring Avenue, 3700 block of Neosho Street, 3700 block of Taft Avenue, 3400 block of Alberta Avenue, 3300 block of Gasconade Street, on the 3200 block of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Alderman Cohn.
Thank you. This is a bit of a bitter pill. This is actually a list of requests that I've received over probably the last 3 years from residents, multiple requests with respect to speed humps. I have been trying to slowly address these in the neighborhood in phases versus, coming before the streets department at the time, who was administering, parking or speed humps and traffic calming. And, since we passed an ordinance a couple years ago, which hopefully we'll be revisiting this session, requiring an ordinance for speed humps. This was part of a list that was submitted last session that did not get amended into a bill. But I would like to be clear, I do not believe that speed humps are a panacea for curing the traffic violence that happens in our city. I don't think that infrastructure enhancement alone is going to do much to curtail the actual speeding that does take place. I've probably put in close to 50 speed humps in the neighborhood in the last 4 years. And I still get complaints from the people who live on the streets that have the speed humps, and they cost, a great deal of money to install. I think in phase 1, we did maybe 40 speed humps, and they ended up costing $150,000 to $175,000 to install those. And still the people who live on those streets call complaining about speeding. So, I'm very clear with my constituents with respect to the expectations that are there, and also have, since, transitioning from the alderman of the 25th ward to the alderman of the 3rd ward, have been also kind of aligning with expectations that there needs to be a plat and petition process for engaging neighbors that are on those blocks. So I've actually created a petition process that I'll be using going forward until we do update the ordinance here. So just for any constituents that might be listening at home, I'm not telling you no for no reason. I am being consistent in my approach here, but these have been kind of on the radar, so to speak, for several years now, and just want to make sure that they get moving and then approach the new normal as we move forward, with the intent of hopefully we can have a standardized process citywide. and happy to let any of you see the petition that I've created to share with your own constituents if you're interested.
Thank you. Any questions from members of my committee? Vice Chair Browning.
Just interested in seeing that petition, but otherwise understand exactly the sentiments you expressed and agree for the most part. And hopefully we'll be looking at revisiting the requirement of an ordinance to install speed humps.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge?
No, I just second the comments from Alderman Browning. Would love to see that petition. And I was just looking at a few of the streets that you have down here, and your residents continue to elect you. Like you say, you've been down here just a few years now, and I have faith that even though this will not completely stop the speeding that we have in all parts of our cities, that it will do some justice. So thank you, Alderman.
Yeah, a lot of the streets that were named by the clerk that are part of this ordinance are rather long streets. The streets in the third ward, in some cases, have over a mile of visibility going down them, and particularly in the wintertime when there's no leaves on the trees, you could literally see for a mile and a half or more down the street with no obstructions, or, I mean, even crosswalks obviously aren't even painted in most of our residential areas. So these at least create some sort of impediment or barrier to speeding, which is helpful.
Thank you.
But again, does not obviously solve the issue entirely.
Right. I also have I don't call it a petition, I call it just a public, like a survey form for signing up for speed humps for folks. And in the process that I have in my ward, it's, you know, more than half of the block needs to sign up saying that they're interested. But that still puts a lot of onus on the people who live there to go around and collect these signatures, which is tough. I mean, if I have older constituents who make that request, or people who just simply don't have the time to do it, it's certainly not a perfect system. And as I said to the ward capital folks I talked with earlier today, it takes a certain type of person to feel comfortable going up to a stranger's house and knock on the door. And I know we've all done it, but for your average person to go up and knock on the door and request a signature on something, it takes a lot of certain type of person. So it's I think a good system, but it also doesn't really address some of the things that we've talked about as a committee in terms of wanting the streets department to
be empowered.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, so it's tough. Yeah, I would be interested. I mentioned to my ward capital folks today too. It would be nice to see a list from the streets department, as you know, these streets have all requested speed humps. They've all are on streets that they can be put on. This is the order we're doing this. You know, that would be a great thing to go into your ward capital meeting with, as opposed to this process. So I think we have some work to do there. Wonderful. Any closing comments you'd like to make?
No. I think I've spoke my mind, but I'll make sure to get the petition that I created over to the committee for their review if they're interested. And I believe the clerk actually just sent a copy of it out this morning. So I'll get that over to you all, and otherwise appreciate your favorable consideration. Thank
you so much. With that, I will entertain a due pass recommendation for Board Bill number 24.
So moved.
Second, previous roll.
Been a motion and a second, and a request for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, Board Bill number 24 is passed with a due pass recommendation to the full board. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Moving on, we don't have any resolutions for review, and we have already taken public comment on the purview of our committee. Do we have any other written testimony?
No, we do not.
Okay. Any announcements from members of the committee? Okay. Any excused members? We do need to have a motion to excuse Alderwoman Keyes and Alderman Vollmer. Make it a motion. I think I can actually just excuse them, can't I? I excuse Alderman Vollmer and Alderwoman Keyes for necessary absences. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
All right. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.